Wednesday afternoon, too. It's 4 o'clock in time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope your afternoon is off to a great start. Interesting thing, Robert Mays, Athletic Football Show, with the outlook for Todd Monken and the Browns. This is from 92.3 The Fan.
I think Todd is a really good offensive football coach. I think he's been a really good offensive football coach for a long time. I think there are two different ways that this could potentially go as I think about the archetype of coach that Todd is and how this season might play out. The best case scenario, and I've made this comparison since he got hired, like I think if you're a Browns fan, the best way that this can work out is that this is like Bruce Arians 2.0, where you have a guy that is a longtime assistant, waited for his chance, and surprises some people in terms of how good of a head coach he ends up being in his 60s. The downside of this, and I think the worst case scenario is this one of those kind of interstitial hires for a bad team where you're hiring Todd Monken as a step to hiring your head coach that's going to be here as you really kind of pull yourself out of the muck. And I don't know which one of those it is. If you told me that this was a one-year thing and they're looking for a head coach again next year, just based on the current state of the roster, the level of quarterback play they're going to get, that wouldn't surprise me at all. But I have enough respect for Todd Monken where I absolutely can see the other path working out, where the offense is a little bit better than we expected. You're maximizing the players on that side of the ball, and you can talk yourself into the idea of, okay, when we get a quarterback in here, we do think this is the right guy to oversee that process.
All fair points. I would say if they're looking for a head coach next year, they're probably looking for a general manager as well. Browns linebacker Quincy Williams on his relationship with new defensive coordinator Mike Rutenberg.
When I first met him, he asked me what I wanted. And, you know, it's kind of crazy. Most times you hear a coach, he tell you what he wants from you, and I paid you to come here. But when I first met Rudy, he asked me what I wanted out of this game. What did I want from the team? And I told him I wanted to be all-pro. I told him I wanted to be the best linebacker in the league. So he said, all right now, so everything I do moving forward, everything I tell you, that's in mind. So don't get mad at me or don't lash out at me because you told me what you want. So everything I tell you moving forward is going to be to get to that goal. And then 2023, I got the all-pro nod. So that was basically me trusting him because he said it, and I got the all-pro nod. So then when he called me Monday and said the same thing, like, yo, do you trust me? You want to go all pro again? And I said, yeah. So it was just a trust thing. So I came to the Browns.
Again, Quincy Williams, linebacker, Mike Rutenberg had some of his best years under Rutenberg, so let's see how that develops with the Browns. But all in all, looks like a really good signing. One name connected to the Browns more so as of late in a lot of mock drafts, Georgia offensive tackle Monroe Freeling. Brian Baldinger, former NFL offensive lineman, on if he would take Freeling with the 6th pick.
I like Monroe Freeling. I mean, I actually watched him quite a bit this week. You know, he's got the size. He's almost 6'8", and he ran really, really well. He's on his feet at Georgia. He's just not very strong. And you're going to have to just be – I think he's only 21 years old. I mean, he's going to get a lot stronger. If you're willing to be patient with him, I think he has the chance to be really good. But if you're saying, okay, we're going to take him number 6 and play him right away, I think Myles Garrett, in practice might destroy his confidence. But I mean, I do like him. It seems awfully rich though at 6, and I don't really pay much attention to mock drafts or where people are taking him, but he's going to get taken in the first round. I just think that his core strength has to get a lot better. You constantly see it. Like, he just has to get, he's just a young kid that's athletic. I mean, I think you just have to be patient with him, but I think he could be a real good player.
Again, 6 overall, if you take somebody at 6, you're expecting them to make an impact. I don't know if you can wait. So I don't know if you're saying you got to wait on Freeling because of the core strength. I don't know if you can do that. All right, let's turn our attention to the Cavaliers. They began a 3-game road trip last night in Milwaukee. Came in losing 5 of their last 9 games, trying to get things right. Only about 10 games left in the regular season. James Harden finds Evan Mobley for the dunk. Good dish. Mobley and Harden developing a chemistry. Mobley gets the offensive rebound and another dunk. Mobley has been playing very well as of late. Sam Merrill Finds Mobley again for the dunk. Mobley, 27 points, 15 rebounds. James Harden knocking down the three-pointer. Cavs had the lead and really held on to it most of the game. Harden drives in for the layup. He gets the foul. Harden, 27 points, 16 assists. The Cavaliers defeat the Bucks 123-116 is the final. Cavs now 42-27, fourth place in the Eastern Conference. 2.5 games behind the Knicks, who are in third. Travel to Chicago to take on the Bulls tomorrow night in the Windy City. Time for a quick timeout. Other side of the break. Browns are up first. Garrett Bush from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Browns are up first on Sports4CLE. Let's get right to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, what's up, Dave? Taylor from Columbus. We all seem to have the same question. How much of an upgrade are the new offensive line? One of the biggest things that stands out to me is their availability. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the cliche-ish term that the best ability is availability, because we saw some guys, Robinson, KT Levinson, they were available, but they weren't very good. Hopefully what we have is an upgrade, and also hopefully Andrew Berry isn't done upgrading the offensive line through the draft. It seems like this guy, Caleb Lomo, is being slept on. Everybody's talking about Monroe Freeling because of his potential, but Caleb is a proven starter at a Power 5 school. So let me know what you think about him. I like him a lot.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Garrett Bush from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show in the Barbershop. G. Bush, I guess instead of availability, maybe durability. You got guys that were former first-round picks that have played a lot of football. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I think they've raised the ceiling in amount. I think they probably raised the floor of this offensive line to a significant, they're all decent. And the other thing is, and you would know this as well as anybody, I'm curious your opinion. I think an offensive line coach and what you're going to ask these guys to do, you need those 5 guys playing together. And I think the situation and who's coaching them is really important.
Situation, scheme, what they're asking those guys to do, and you look up and down rosters, and this is things that we talk about with offensive line play all the time is. When you look at up and down rosters, you're not necessarily going to see from roster to roster names that you may necessarily know. Guys could be from Division I, smaller schools. There's some guys from Power 5 schools. There's a mix of everyone. But the one thing that you hope to do is if you have a good offensive line coach and a good teacher up there, and you have good, solid schemes in what you want to do, then you can get serviceable play. I think one of the things that we look at in the NFL now is I think the reason why defenses, people say all the time, have defenses caught up to the offense? Have they finally figured out why these quarterbacks are struggling as of a couple last year? Even guys like Patrick Mahomes or C.J. Stroud, or why is it that it seems like the quarterbacks are struggling? And I go always and think about it like this. Defensive linemen now have been such freaks of nature that these guys are the most athletic guys on the field. I mean, guys are running 4.4, 4.5s, and you're asking these tackles to block these guys. And it's not just used to be there used to be one side of the field that was more of a run defender type end, a bigger body, maybe a guy that would play head up on a tackle or the 4-eye. Now you got edge rushers, and they move them all around. The linebackers are running 4.4s now. So the offensive line play, I think, has taken a step backwards, and the defensive line play has taken a step forward. But to specifically talk about the Cleveland Browns, I think what they really wanted to do is give themselves some bodies to work with. They needed to be able to say, okay, Luke Whippler, he's coming off injury. DeJuan Jones coming off injury. DeJuan, not only him, but Zach Zenner is a guy who they drafted in the 3rd round who's not been able to get on the field. You can't really count on those guys. KT Levinson is still on this team. But what you did is you added some bodies and some pieces that have played in the league, have had some good tape in certain areas, and are going to give you a higher floor now, because if you get anything from DeJuan Jones, you're not counting on DeJuan Jones. You just, hey, if you get something, great. You have depth. As Zach Zenner, if the light bulb goes on him, for great. But Elton Jenkins is a guy who's been a Pro Bowler in this league before. You got Tevin Jenkins, who they brought back, who actually they made Wyatt Teller expendable because they wanted to see what he can do. And then Titus Howard looks like he's going to be at bare minimum a guy who's going to be able to start some games for you on the right-hand side. So you got a little more versatility. You got a little younger at certain positions. You got, more bodies in that room. And hopefully with what Todd Monken wants to do, you put yourself in a better position where you have better offensive line play and you're not one of the worst O-lines in the league.
What are your thoughts about Lomu? He specifically asked about Lomu. That's the other Utah tackle. Fano is one.
Yeah.
I think Lomu played on the right side because of Fano. So I'm not thrilled with going and getting a guy that hadn't played left tackle. And I'm not pounding the table for Freeling. I want a guy that's played left tackle if you're going to ask him to play left tackle.
And here's what we got to go to. Like, we got to get to this. I said this today. If you're going to draft one of these guys at 6, even if it's Monroe Freeling, if you're going to draft him, he can't be a project. Yep. He can't be, okay, well, let's put DeJuan Jones in for a little bit, bring him along slowly. We're not at that point in time. Whoever you take at 6 has to be a guy you pencil in is going to be a starter. And for me, Spencer Fano and Lomu are both kind of in the same mold for me as a guy that watches up front. I worry about their lower body strength. They're not guys that are going to be road graders. They're more position blockers. Also, I would like to see a little more flexibility in terms of, how they kick slide. Now, they move very well, but you're going to see a problem because a lot of these speed rushers will, like Myles Garrett and Max Crosby and some of these guys, those guys can really convert speed to power very quickly. And Myles Garrett, if those guys, especially Fano, is a little on the thinner side, about 305, 310, Myles Garrett's 280. And he's running a 4.5. So they got to get more functional strength. They're really good pass protectors. But if you go back, they had a hard time. Go back to Texas Tech tape where they had guys up front. Texas Tech is going to have, obviously, Bailey is going to be a guy that's going to be a first-round pick. But they're going to have guys up and down that defensive line for Texas Tech who are going to be pro players. And they gave them fits. They just seem to be – Utah is a Power 5 school. But they gave them fits a little bit. Now, I would take I like the kid Miller from Clemson a little better than I like Lomu. Caden Proctor is another guy that we decide whether it's a tackle or a guard. And Maui Noah, we already know. But I think Fano will go higher than Lomu. And that's where most people haven't projected. But one thing that is for sure, 2 things for certain. Hey, if one of those guys aren't there that you don't like and they're not going to be a day 1 starter, then you got to go another direction and at least get you a guy like Cardell Tate or somebody that you're going to pencil in as a starter day 1, and you can say, all right, well, let's set it and forget it and fill some other holes.
Yeah, you know what? You were saying the same thing last year at 5 when we were talking about Mason Graham. If you're taking him at 5, you better be able to play him, and I'm with you. I agree. At 6, you better get somebody who's going to start. What are your thoughts about the quarterback battle? Are we now staring down it's Shedeur against Deshaun to be the starter?
Well, I think we talked to Zach Jackson of The Athletic today on UCSS, and he talked about how he has an article out that said that Shedeur Sanders has a clear path runway to being this quarterback in 2026. I think they will let Deshaun Watson come in to compete with him. The thing about Deshaun Watson is we haven't seen the old Deshaun Watson in well over 5 years. I mean, now this is 2 stints that he's been with almost a year and a half, 2 years off. So we don't know what he's going to give us. We don't even know how his body's going to be able to hold up to that. It looks like they've moved on for Dylan Gabriel. I do expect that they will bring in a developmental quarterback, whether it's a Drew Aller, His pro day was today. Zach talked about that. They also talked about Taylor Green, the quarterback from Arkansas, who ran a 4.37, and he's almost 6'5", 6'6". He's another guy, but raw. But yeah, there's going to be a guy that they bring in, I think, as a developmental quarterback. But in terms of what they're going to do at quarterback, I believe that Shedeur Sanders is going to get 2026 to see what he can do. And if he does not turn out to be the guy that they thought he was, or if the lottery ticket doesn't hit, I think that they'll move to 2027 and find a quarterback. But the way they're positioning themselves, they could have got Malik Willis. They passed on it. Kyler Murray passed on it. Geno Smith, he's with the Jets. A lot of the names that we were mentioning, Anthony Richardson, there's reports out there that, the Browns are kind of never were in on that. So from what they've done and for what they've shown us, unless they go get Ty Simpson, which I don't think is a very high probability in the first round, I think that you're looking at Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders duking it out. They'll bring in a developmental guy unless something unforeseen happens where, I don't know, somebody could come available as a veteran that they like a little more than Dylan Gabriel to kind of compete. But it looks like the writing is on the wall, so to speak, where the Browns are standpoint. We still have the draft to go, but that looks like what the likely option is.
Yeah, as I think about Deshaun Watson, it's almost a no-win situation. If he goes out and plays well for you, I don't see you signing him to do an extension just because of everything. So at that point, if it's Watson against Sanders, it's pretty clear they want Sanders to take the job and run with it.
Yeah, I mean, because here's the thing. We talked about this about a week ago. You're in a no-win situation here. If you got Deshaun Watson and he comes out and plays well for you, two things can happen. If he comes out and plays well, but not well enough for you to be in the playoffs, well, then you don't have the ammunition to get a quarterback. Also, if he plays well, I think his relationship is tumultuous enough with the media, the fan base, and the organization that he's going to want a fresh start somewhere. If he plays well enough, he's like, oh, listen, I've seen enough of Cleveland. I think it's worth a fresh start. So he's going to have the leverage, and I think he would go somewhere else. And then, obviously, if you play well enough, you get yourself out of contention for a quarterback, you probably won't bring him back due to his injury profile. And you're not going to invest that much, money in him and long term again. So you basically hamstrung yourself by playing somebody who is probably not going to be on your roster, no matter if he plays good, bad, or indifferent. So the way you get out of that is you play Shedeur Sanders, and if he hits, you got one of the biggest lottery tickets ever because you got a 5th round pick on a Minimowski deal. And you can take and build around him if he plays that well. Also, it puts you in a position where, hey, you got a guy who, if he plays that well, you grow your fan base. You got a stadium coming up that you need to sell new PSL tickets for. So that may work out well for you. And if it doesn't work out well, and he does not perform as some people may forecast, well, then you're bad, and you go back into the draft in 27, in the draft that people have been talking about for a long time now, and then you can get in there and get another quarterback, and then now you can start the real trajectory where you're going to go. But I just think odds on favor right now, if it's between Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders, I'd have to go with Shedeur Sanders. But then again, it works out best because, hey, you still want some competition and you want Shedeur Sanders to be the best he can be, and competition brings that out. So you still got some things that you can look forward to, but I would say Shedeur is probably the odds-on favorite to be day one starter.
Garrett Bush and I from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Albert Breer. Draft options for Browns at 6. Sports4CLE, be right back.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little flag in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games wait for you and me, the Ohio Lottery. Put a little flag in your day, put a little flag in your day.
We continue talking Browns with Garrett Bush from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show and the Barbershop. Albert Breer, Monday morning quarterback, talking about the Browns draft options with that 6th pick. This from 92.3 The Fan.
Right now, it does feel to me a little bit like, and like I think Bono and Maui Noah have been kind of circled to me as the top 2 tackles. The Penn State guard might actually be the best lineman in the draft, but I'd say Bono and Maui Noah are seen as probably the best 2 tackles by most teams. Now, the thing about those 2 is that they're right tackles, right? And Maui Noah is probably only a right tackle in the pros, whereas like Bono, you see some things, and there's a guy who might be a first-round pick, and Caleb Lomu playing opposite him, like where you can say, okay, like that's the reason he wasn't the left tackle. So, like, I don't know that Monroe Freeling is at the point yet where you say he's going to go in front of those guys. But, I mean, he is a left tackle, and so, if teams continue to dig into him and we get to that point, like, I don't think it's impossible. I think a lot of things in this draft are up in the air at this point, just because you don't have, like, the super elite, like Joe Alt type of left tackle or Myles Garrett type of defensive end or Patrick Surtain type of corner or Julio Jones type of receiver. You don't have those guys at the top of this class. And so it does feel like there's some compromising going on. And I certainly think that sets up to have some surprises early on.
So, G. Bush, you hear that. There isn't the top-end talent. That screams trade back if you can.
Yeah, that's all day. And the thing is, the draft has to fall a little bit. So somebody has to fall in love with somebody. Somebody has to say, listen, I got to get Sonny Styles, or I better have Caleb Downs. And the more defensive players that are available to you at 6 is the best option for you if you want to trade down. And I'm going to just throw this out. Look, if you tell me, if you saying, hey, there's 4 blue chip players in this draft, there's 4 or 5 of them, and one of those blue chip players is sitting there looking at you, I would tell you, I would rather have a blue chip player that I know is not a can't miss and is going to bolster and is going to add to my team, rather than reaching for a tackle that plays on the right side, but I think might end up being a guard. I can't play around with that. Yep. So, you talk about Maui Noah, like some of them saying he's only a right tackle, but his best position might be guard. Well, if you're doing those mental gymnastics at 6, I feel comfortable doing those mental gymnastics at 12, 11, 13, 15, maybe 10. But I can't do that at 6. So what I would suggest is, if there is a defensive guy there, and trust me, I don't say this because I totally agree that the Browns need to go in there and to get offensive weapons taken care of. Now, this doesn't mean that they ignore the position room. They may have to get creative and go get a receiver via trade, and you might have to overpay a little bit. But my thing is, you have to come away with a blue chip type player. You can't punt and then get another 2 or 3 guys. Because you take a look at Jordan Tyson. Jordan Tyson has injury stuff, injury concerns. You take a look at Mekhi Lemon. Like, I think he'll be there, but he's not going to be at 24. You take a look at Carnell Tate. He's definitely not going to be there at 24. So the calculus has to be, which one of these positions is less likely to be available on your board when you pick again at 24? And if that guy is there that you have rated high, you got to take him. You do it, what you can do. The ideal circumstance is to trade down and then still be able to get whoever you want on the board and still pick up maybe a 2nd-round pick this year. But the way the draft may be looking, if them blue chip players run out, then, what did you get the 6th pick for? You're there because and you can get these at bottom of the barrel prices. These are premium positions. The Browns aren't going to attract free agent receivers. The Browns aren't going to be able to go out and get a blockbuster deal. And take a look at what Jalen Waddle got. Take a look at what they traded for him. It was like a first, a second, a first and a third. And they're like, Jalen Waddle's a good ball player, But man, that's a high asking price for Jalen Waddle. So you're gonna have to develop your own. You're gonna figure it out on your own. I believe, Carthon, a clip that you guys had, he said, Cardell Tate is a guy that is available, and at receiver, that's one of the only ways to get receivers that are that quality if you feel like it is through the draft. We've done the Jerry Jeudy and Mari Cooper thing. But yeah, whatever they do, what they have to figure out is you can't reach at 6 though. You take who's on the board that's available, and even if it's a defender, if you tell me I think Caleb Downs is the craziest person and he's gonna be the craziest, he's Ed Reed. I'm like, well, I may not like it. You may have to go find a receiver somewhere else, but at least give me the blue chip player.
Yep. All right, along those lines, Daniel Jeremiah from NFL.com did a mock draft, so let's take a look at who he has. He has the Browns taking Carnell Tate at 6. Downs went to the Bengals. You see Lemon, Tyson. Freeling goes 17. So he does have Caleb Lomu going to them at 24. And at 24, I like Caleb Lomu a whole lot more than I like him
there you go.
At 6.
Look, hey, I like him a lot better at 24. Now, listen, it's funny how the sticker price changed. You're like, oh, I could do that. And listen, we can do that for a couple thousand off on that. That's a nice because he's the best available on the board. You can bring him in. You can try transitioning them to the left side, but you have some options. You do still have DeJuan Jones. You do still have Titus Howard. You got an opportunity. And plus, if you get him there, you still have an opportunity in the second round to dip back in and upgrade and continue. You might get another lineman. You might get another receiver with a different body type. There may be a Zachariah Branch. Maybe a Casey Concepcion is still available. Maybe a Chris Bell is available. So now you still got some pieces and things you can mess with. But at 24 there, I prefer, this is the way I'm thinking about it. I prefer to take the best available tackle at 24 rather than the best available receiver at 24, if that makes sense. Because you see on that board, Cardell Tate will be gone, Jordan Tyson be gone, Mekhi Lemon will probably be gone. You're dealing with smaller type receivers. You may be able to get a Denzel Boston there, bigger receiver out of Washington. Chris Bell will probably be there. Casey Concepcion will be there. But the consensus 3 top receivers won't be on your board at that potential time. And, you still would have Lomu is still there. Miller would probably there from Clemson. So I would prefer to get my receiver skill position first, then dip back at 24 at a lower sticker price for a tackle who I know is not penciled in as a blue chip left tackle, maybe a little bit of a project, maybe you need a little buffer and a little work.
Yeah. Get me a playmaker at 6. I'm with you. G. Bush, as always, great stuff, man. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Appreciate you.
Garrett Bush, make sure you check him out Monday through Friday, 11 to 1, Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show on the weekends. Check him out on the Barbershop. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report, up next. Stay with us.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games await for you and me, the Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day, put a little play in your day.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Albert Breer with what he's seen from the Browns in the offseason so far. This from 92.3 The Fan.
Feels to me like they're treading water to some degree. I don't know. Like, do you guys not feel that way? Like, I don't know. Like, I think it's year one, and I don't know if this is going to be a throwaway year, but I would put them in the bucket of teams that is probably bridging to 27 when it comes to quarterback. There with teams like the Jets and the Cardinals and, Dolphins. So I think they're probably like just trying to see their way through that. And I don't know if this makes sense as being the year when you want to go splurge on a lot of different things anyway. Now, I would question, like, you lose Wyatt Teller today. Joe Bitonio is a free agent still. And so you're going with Kevin Jenkins at guard. I mean, it's just like, I don't know if they've gotten demonstrably worse, but have they gotten a whole lot better? I wouldn't say that's the case either.
With that, let's welcome in Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Fred, a lot of things have been made of the guys they've signed on the offensive line. What are your thoughts?
Well, they have obviously made that the priority, and I look back to Andrew Berry's first year as general manager with the Browns. First move he made right off, he made a big splash by getting Jack Conklin to be the right tackle. This year, before free agency started, he traded for Titus Howard to be the right tackle. And then in the draft, he drafted Jedrick Wills with the 10th pick overall. Didn't work out so great. Conklin was a good player. He just couldn't stay on the field. He missed 44 games in his time here. Browns have the 6th pick. I would expect them to draft a tackle, if not with the 6th pick, in a trade down or with at least their 2nd first-round pick. So I think he kind of follows the same prescription. I think left tackle is obviously the big situation. Went out and got 2 guards. Zion Johnson is kind of prototypical, also a Berry signing, coming off his first contract, a first-round pick in the past, 26 years old. The other 2 are a little outside the box. I think Jenkins is 30, and I think that I'm talking about Elton Jenkins, and Titus Howard, the trade, I think he's 30. They came out together. They talked about playing with each other at the Senior Bowl and so forth. So they are like 8th-year guys. So it's not like you're going completely young. It's like they're trying to have some experience on that offensive line. So I'm okay there. But, when they said they wanted to get younger, you look at Teller, I think he's 31. And so basically his replacement, if it was Elton Jenkins, would be 30. And so if Bitonio comes back or if he doesn't, his replacement would be younger. So overall, I really think they've attacked it in the way they think is going to suit them. That's about it. They made a good signing on defense in Quincy Williams. I think it might be an upgrade over Devin Bush when it's all said and done because of his play for Rutenberg. And you can see they've really attacked special teams. Guys that were kind of signed just to play special teams, and Trey Avery, D'Angelo Ross, now Thomas, and even the punter re-signing him. So last year, special teams fell apart, and part of it was guys that really hadn't played special teams. They didn't have the specialists like they had in previous years, guys like Michael Ford and guys that were just signed pretty much to be special teams guys. So, yeah, I'm not too excited what I've seen or not seen at quarterback or at wide receiver. Those are the 2 priorities, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of versatility on the line, so they're going to find ways to plug guys in. I think I don't know that I think, and I keep saying this, people are probably sick of me saying this, I don't think the ceiling is really high for the offensive line. I think the floor of it is significantly higher because Titus Howard and Zion Johnson they've played a lot. They've been there and they play. That's part of the problem is the Browns haven't been able to get the same 5 guys to play week in and week out.
Yeah, they had last I counted or remember counting 9, 10, 11 different offensive line combinations last year. So the best, thing is being availability. And obviously they were looking for that. They were looking for guys. Like I said, Howard was a first-round pick. Jenkins was a high second-round pick. And Johnson was a first-round pick. The only thing that's been a head-scratcher to me is left tackle. Is Rasheed Walker was not valued as like one of the top left tackles in the NFL, but in free agency he was ranked as the top available one. And the Browns have a need at left tackle. And he ends up signing a 1-year deal. I saw it come out today, 1 year, $4 million, with incentives up to $10 million. Even at a 1 year, $10 million, you thought was a bargain. So either the Browns really didn't think he was very good, or they're totally going in the draft for the left tackle, which ultimately is probably the best way to go. But it takes away an option, with your first pick. I was thinking they might get Walker. Then you can at least, not have to take the left tackle in the first round. Maybe you could take 2 wide receivers. I don't know. But all that being said, that was the biggest thing. There was something that caused teams to shy away from Rasheed Walker.
Titus Howard, I know you wrote an article, why he bought into the vision that the Browns presented him after the trade. Talk us through that article.
Well, first off, I think the $49 million, or no, he got $63 million, 3-year extension, $63 million. That's going to make me say good things about whoever I'm working for. But no, I do think that somebody gets reinvigorated, when you're wanted. Obviously, the Browns sought him out, traded for him, and gave him a 3-year extension, kind of what they did in the past with Jerry Jeudy and Amari Cooper. And I think they're hoping, as you said earlier, the guy has been very available. And he's been able, last year he started at 3 different positions for the Texans. Every time they had a need, they moved him around. When we talked to him, he said he started out at quarterback, and then he went to tight end at college, and a guy got hurt, and they moved him to tackle, and he never left. And the coach said, hey, you could be a first-round pick if we keep you at tackle. And he ended up being a first-round pick. So, yeah, I think it's a solid signing, and I can see why he's excited. He's got a couple guys. Like I said, he's wanted to play with Elton Jenkins. He helped recruit him here. And so right then in itself gives it a little bit of a nucleus. And then Zion Johnson. Plus, going back to what I said, besides the contract being wanted. When the Texans did not pick up his 5th-year option, that told him, hey, I'm not long-term in their plans. They might want me back, but at a 1-year prove-it type deal. And so the Browns are not a top destination place, and that's one of the reasons I think Andrew Berry would like to trade for guys, because you get them, and then you figure out how to pay them. You get into free agency, and, you read the reports, Zion Johnson and Elton Jenkins, they probably got overpaid. But for the Browns, in their situation, they need to do that because they need to solidify that offensive line.
The other thing, and you wrote a little bit about this, experience, versatility, stability, it kind of reshaped the O-line in addition to the skills. So much of offensive line play, especially at the NFL level, is how those 5 guys interact and know what the other one's doing. And a lot of that comes down to what you're asking them to do in the coaching. How big of a factor do you think George Warhop is in this? And he has experience with a couple of these guys.
Yeah, Elton Jenkins and
I think Titus Howard, yeah.
Yeah, we got all these names. They all start with J, Elton Jenkins and Titus Howard and Tevin Jenkins and Zion Johnson. But as far as Warhop, was talked about as really being a key guy to them. He's been around. He was with the Texans, so he coached Howard down there, and he worked with some of those guys in the past. So I think that he is one of the most important signings. Obviously, because the Browns struggled on offense last year, and everybody talked about starting over with the offensive line, 4 of the 5 were free agents. he was a big hire, and I felt at the time when Monken hired Warhop, first guy hired, he's got to put this together, and they've got to mold 5 guys together that can take care of your quarterback, whether it's Shedeur Sanders, Watson, whatever it is. Give them time so you can really evaluate and have a chance to do something on offense. So I do think that Warhop was big in the plans. The players like him, and now we'll see if they can put it together. I'm sure a lot of these acquisitions, Warhop, showed them film and said, this is a guy or guys we can use and work with. So now the biggest hole would still be left tackle, and I cannot believe that they would just go into the offseason or go into any further with DeJuan Jones as the only option at left tackle. I think he can compete, but I think you want to either draft a guy at the top of the draft and have competition, because like we talked about durability and staying on the field, the guys they've been going to have stayed on the field, other than Jenkins broke his leg, late in the season. I don't know if there's anything you can do about that, but as far as that's number one priority to them so far, and so they still have other holes, but I don't know if they'll address any more with free agency other than maybe depth or backups, but they got a lot of those guys already on the roster.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Now we're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Quincy Williams, linebacker, why he chose the Browns. Sports for CLE, be right back.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Browns linebacker Quincy Williams talking about why he chose the Browns in free agency and what he brings to the team. This is from 92.3 The Fan.
The defensive coordinator, Rudy, a good friend of mine, and then also my linebacker coach when I came into the league at 2 teams, and then on top of that, just seeing a top 5 defense, man, just want to be a part of that.
For you, what do you think you add to this defense? You just mentioned a top 5 defense, but they wanted you. What do you add to this group?
Number one, pride. That's the biggest thing. Then the celebration, the atmosphere, the energy of the game, and then on top of that, the leadership. I know we got my boy, Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'm excited about that, so I get to play next to him and then also learn from him, and then also teach him some few things because he picked up on things early in the league. So I'm excited about that.
Fred, Quincy Williams, fast guy. You put him with Schlesinger. I'm with you. You said last segment you think it might have been an upgrade. Devin Bush played really well. This guy might be an upgrade, and he's the defensive coordinator, Rutenberg's guy.
Yeah, first off, I thought Devin Bush, even though he was projected a little lower in free agency among linebackers, I thought he deserved to come back. He had played, and finally got himself up to his former first-round billing last year and played well for the Browns. But he got paid. He got a big contract, over $30 million, I think, 3 years. But at the opening press conference when we were introduced to Rutenberg, he mentioned Quincy Williams, and you knew before the ink had really dried, I already had confirmation that Quincy Williams had joined the Browns. And so I'm sure that was in the offing, and this guy really played well under Rutenberg. It looked like, besides being a friend and a connection, he really pushed the buttons and really knew how to use him. He had 4 straight years of 100 tackles or more when he was playing under Mike Rutenberg. And he was all pro in 2023. And I don't mean Pro Bowl, I'm talking all pro. One of the best 3 linebackers in the NFL, overall. So last year he had a down year. He did miss 4 games with a shoulder injury, had a little tiff with the coach. I think they get along well. I think that he'll fit right in. Rutenberg knows how to use him. He mentioned Schlesinger. I think that's a real good fit. I mean, the downside to a lot of this was JOK. A lot of us thought Owusu Kamara would be able to come back maybe this year, and you put him with Schlesinger. He's very similar type player to Quincy Williams. I think JOK was ascending and was probably obviously more in his prime. But I think if you were not going to get JOK back, I think this guy fits the bill. Sideline to sideline, speed. He talked about being like a cheetah, chasing down gazelles. I really do think. I think he'll be reinvigorated. He's only a year older than Bush, so it's not like he's an ancient mariner. And so I think it could be an upgrade all the way around in the linebacker room.
All right, Albert Breer, Monday Morning Quarterback, with his thoughts on the Browns' quarterback situation.
I don't know if there was a ton of sense in cutting Deshaun Watson. And the reason why is you've already paid him all this money. You've built up all his cap debt. I mean, they would have sucked to cut him in the last year, and then all of a sudden he goes and plays really well somewhere else, and you're paying for it, So I can understand the logic in, like, we're paying for it anyway. It's a sunk cost. We might as well see what the guy's got. I don't know if there's some great hope that Shedeur is going to be the future of the franchise. Again, I'd sort of look at it the same way I look at those teams I mentioned a second ago. The Cardinals right now are going with Gardner Minshew and Jacoby Brissett. We'll see if they add Jimmy Garoppolo to that mix. The Jets are going with Geno. The Dolphins are going with Malik Willis. I just think it's a weird spot for some of these teams to be in because these teams are drafting high, and generally you'd be looking at quarterback, but the makeup of this year's class is that it's probably one franchise level guy in Fernando Mendoza, and then a big drop off. And I actually would agree with the idea of punting if you don't think that the guy that's going to be there for you is a franchise guy and not forcing him. I think the worst thing you can do is force a first round pick on a quarterback or force something at quarterback that really is going to not help you in the long term and maybe keep you off the market and looking for one in the short term.
Fred, I guess the question I have, just gut feeling as we talk here March 18th, is the starting quarterback for the Browns on the roster right now?
If you're talking this year, I'd say yes. They're not giving me any indication that now this could be not correct, but even going back to when the Browns went after Deshaun Watson, that became very public. Obviously, we remember that because Baker Mayfield threw a fit and demanded to be traded. I have to believe that if the Browns would have been in on or even pursuing Malik Willis or Kyler Murray or any of these, even Geno Smith, that we would have heard about it. I mean, the Jets got Geno Smith just before they cut him because they didn't want to go through, free agency. I think it was like a 7th round pick or something, and they absorbed some of the contract. It doesn't appear to me the Browns are looking to try to find a starting quarterback. They might bring in somebody to compete, as a body, but they sure haven't showed their hand that they are interested in trying to bring in a starting quarterback, for sure. The guy's the quarterback, whether it was Malik Williams or Daniel Jones, there wasn't many options. Kyler Murray. The only free agent out there is pretty much Kirk Cousins. And, you might be able to trade for Mac Jones or Jameis Winston, but I don't see them, you haven't heard any rumbling. So to me, their lack of activity tells me they are planning on going with Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders, one of those two guys. They may draft a guy, but I cannot we're taking Mendoza out of the situation. Unless something drastically changes, he's off the table. So I cannot see them drafting a quarterback at 6. And even if you took, Simpson, at 24 or traded up, I can't believe they would name him the starting quarterback or anybody else. Nussmeier, or down the, is what you would call developmental. So I really think right now, it's going to be Sanders or Watson. And my only cautionary tale is Todd Monken wants to see him on the field, and I get that. But if you open this up for quarterback competition, I really think there's a strong chance Deshaun Watson will be your opening day starter, because I think just experience-wise, he's gonna look better in practice than Sanders, and that kind of burns Sanders for the year, seeing what he can do, and Watson is just playing out the string. I can't see him staying here after this year. So I just think you build up the offensive line. Hopefully you can get a couple more weapons and see what you have in Sanders. If he gets hurt, sure, you can always use Deshaun as the backup. But I think they're going to go, barring something out of the blue, with what they have right now.
Fred Greetham, Senior Analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Fred.
Thanks, Dave.
Fred Greetham, make sure you check him out. He is the Senior Analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Always good Browns coverage. Check him out. We're going to turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Sam Amico, hoopswire.com, Full Court Cleveland. After this break, stay with us.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games wait for you and me, the Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day, put a little play in your day.
We turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, this is Terry in Canton again. I just have to say, I really think the Cavs need a coaching change. Good grief. When you go to Dallas and beat a team by 32 points, and 2 days later they come to your house and beat you by 20, something's going on there. Jason Kidd made a fool out of Kenny Atkinson.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Let's welcome in Sam Amico, hoopswire.com, co-host of Full Court Cleveland. Sam, yeah, that one was a little bit. There have been a couple of head scratchers. I'm not part of the fire Kenny Atkinson brigade just yet, but I can certainly understand fans going, what's going on here?
Well, here's the thing. The front office went out and made the trades, right? The players that you needed to get tougher. You needed to get that veteran experience in the playoffs, and you got James Harden for that. You got Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis who bring that toughness and that edge. We've seen Thomas Bryant, now that he's getting minutes, has brought that as well. So, yeah, you have what you believe is everything in place. So when things don't go well, after you went out and got these pieces that you thought you were supposed to get, and you got them, and you saved money, and you theoretically on paper improved the roster, all eyes now are going to be on the coach, fair or not, because you went out and improved the roster in the ways that you thought it needed to be improved. And I think, yeah, I mean, the attention is going to shift to Kenny Atkinson and have you maximize the roster that we've delivered. Because, Dave, you remember last year they made a huge trade for DeAndre Hunter, and that didn't work out either. So I think this is working out, and I think it deserves time. But that, fair or not, that's where the eyes are going to be.
Yeah, no, I get that. So the Cavs, they beat the Bucks last night. The question, Jared Allen has missed a number of games. Knee tendonitis, again, that's one of those that I don't ever want to hear especially with a big man in basketball. Yeah. How serious is that? When is it possible that he'll be back?
Listen, with knee tendonitis, it sounds like Jarrett banged knees in that game, and he's been out ever since. He said at the time he'll be all right, but the problem with something like that is it can swell up. You can get some bruising under the knee, and it can even be painful a little bit to walk. I don't know, or even straighten or bend your knee. I don't know that Jared Allen's that where he might not be there, but sometimes these things take a while to heal when it's, constant pounding on the knee. I suspect that, with 10 games left, 11 games left, he should be okay, provided, he continues to go to the treatment, which Jared Allen's really good about that. And just give it time. If this were the playoffs, you'd put a knee pad on there or something and you'd go on out there. But you don't want it to impact his play either for the playoffs. So that's why they're just taking their time and letting this thing heal slowly. It is painful. I've actually had it before, hit my knee, and it swelled up, and it hurt to bend and walk and all that stuff. So it was probably two weeks before, I finally felt like normal again. So hopefully for Jarrett, that's going to be the case. 2 weeks back to it and ready for the playoffs.
All right, so Kenny Atkinson, again, Evan Mobley played really well against the Bucks, double-double. Kenny Atkinson was asked what he's seeing from Mobley after last night's win.
Better tonight. Process was better. He's playing really well. I mean, he's in a good groove. I thought his defense was good. Good effort, and I love his finishing up, around the rim. I feel like he's finishing through contact now. So, I thought him and James were our best players tonight.
And that uptick kind of coincides with Harden coming in. I think he's kind of helping Evan Mobley the way everybody thought he might at the trade.
Well, and that's what, Jared Allen credited James Harden for helping raise his game, and Evan Mobley now has kind of said the same thing. Mobley and Harden got in a room together and been watching film and working on and spending a lot of time together to work on that dynamic two-man game. So I think that's helped. Sometimes, listen, James Harden has a reputation for unleashing big men. And we saw it with Jared Allen, who was already playing well before Harden got here. I think Allen just got more comfortable even with Harden and better looks at the basket. Now we're seeing that with Mobley. Those two are connecting. What will happen when all three of them are out there? That's the Cavs' dream, is to get all three of those guys out there working together at the same time. And we look at Mobley over the last 10 games, 21 points, 10 rebounds average. And James Harden even said after the win over the Bucks, he could have had, should have had 35 and 20 tonight if we had connected even more. So I think that, listen, having a guy like James Harden that's why they went out and got him, unleash these big guys. And oh, by the way, if these three get going together, we also happen to have a guy named Donovan Mitchell, who's the best player on the team.
Yeah, there's that. So there a little bit over, right around a month left. You mentioned 10, 12 games, something like that. Kenny Atkinson was asked last night about kind of figuring out Cavs playoff rotation relative to the players.
You are consistently playing 9, 10, but 10 most nights. Do you believe that you can do that when the playoffs come around?
Probably not. Probably have to get to 9. But again, I'm still evaluating who fits and who's gonna kind of take the lead in terms of getting in that rotation. I still think they We haven't made a clear decision on who those 9 are, but it's tough to play 10. You might be able to do it early in the first round. You can do it in early games, but you eventually get to 9 or 8. So we know that, but still think we have to evaluate. Especially our wings, right? We have a lot of wings right now.
So, Sam, you listen to that. What do you think the decisions are that he's trying to work through?
Yeah, well, and he's right. I think last year against Miami in the first round, you saw that they could play 10 guys, 9, 10. Then with the Pacers, the rotation tightens. I'm sure he's trying to work through the wing rotation with Max Strus, Sam Merrill, obviously Jalen Tyson. And I'm sure I'm forgetting a few in there. I guess Dean Wade kind of plays, both wing and big. So, yeah, that's the main thing. Harden, Mitchell, Allen, and Mobley, when they're healthy, are going to play the bulk of your minutes. It's really who's that other guy who's playing a lot of minutes as your starter. You hope to be healthy enough in the playoffs that you have a set rotation for every game, whether that guy's Max Strus or Sam Merrill or Dean Wade if you go big. So I think that he's working through not just, I got to figure out the starting 5 because we got to figure out who number 5 is, but you also got to figure out, okay, which guy is getting his minutes chopped and when it means the most. Those are things. The nice thing for him is the Cavs are deep, but that's also the terrible thing for Kenny Atkinson because he's got to get it figured out.
All right. I know you're on an article, off-season trade proposal for Giannis. Take us through that and just kind of your thoughts.
Yeah, it's just a hypothetical that I just broke it out because the Cavs were playing the Bucks that night, and everybody's been talking about Giannis. If things shouldn't work out in the second round of the playoffs, or if the Cavs disappoint in the postseason, I think that they'll look to make another splash. And I think that the Giannis thing would be a long shot because I think the Bucks would probably, get better offers than the Cavs could offer unless the Cavs offered Evan Mobley. Now, obviously, there's been no discussions of that. It's just a pure hypothetical. It's a fun exercise we do occasionally on the website. I'd be real hesitant to make that deal at this point because Giannis can't stay on the floor. He's 31 years old. But if you are looking for, all right, our championship window is now, and the East is wide open, then maybe that's something you consider. But I think you have to let the season play out and see how it goes. I'll tell you this, if that were to come to fruition, the Bucks would not get a better offer for Giannis Antetokounmpo than Evan Mobley, and I'd be nervous about that if I were the Cavs to make that trade, thinking, yeah, Evan Mobley's going to be in Milwaukee for the next decade. We'll have Giannis for 2 or 3, but all in fun, and I think we got to wait to see how this Cavs season plays out before we make any more splashes with the Cavaliers.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic, and we've talked about this pretty much all year. You can't say that it doesn't matter until the playoffs, and then obviously you want to be playing better, but you can't lose your mind because they're not playing like they were when they won 62 games in the regular season.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Listen, that Dallas loss was a bad loss.
Yep.
Beyond that, they've been playing pretty well. You didn't play great against Milwaukee, but you ground out a win, and that's all that that's all that matters, is that you can show you can win on the road. And yes, Giannis didn't play, but that loss to Dallas, you get one loss like that, and all of a sudden the narrative changes, and you shouldn't have lost that game. You didn't come out with any energy, any fire, and you just kind of went through the motions when you beat this team the other night, by 30-some points. That flips the narrative real quick. But the bottom line is they before the Harden trade, they lost the Jazz at home. They've had some bad losses. Every team has bad losses. Even the Thunder got, throttled by the Charlotte Hornets. So there's just an element of, yeah, it's a bad loss. It doesn't look great, but keep your perspective because you're right, Dave. Last year, 64-18, everybody says, doesn't matter, the playoffs. Now, it's not 64-18, and we have a lot of, the narrative is kind of freaking out. I just think, listen, we saw what the Indiana Pacers did last year. Nobody expected them as the number 4 seed to get to the Game 7 of the NBA Finals and may have won it had they not lost their star. You can't predict what's going to happen until the real thing begins. You want to form good habits and get some momentum, but it doesn't matter until you roll out the ball in the postseason.
Sam Amico, as always, great stuff, man. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Sam.
All right, Dave, thanks for having me. We'll talk to you soon.
Make sure you're checking out Sam Amico, hoopswire.com. Always really good and insightful Cavs coverage. You can also see him co-host Full Court Cleveland. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.